came the trigger. While Russian missiles were still in the air, Ukraine's response was instant and devastating. First, ports, oil terminals, pipelines, and Russian ships in Krasnodar were blown up. Immediately afterwards, the giant chemical complex in Stavropol was engulfed in flames. Everywhere from Moscow to the Black Sea has turned into Ukraine's firing range. Russia attacked, but Ukraine pulled the plug on the Russian war machine. We begin the story at its hottest point, the tactical duel that took place that night. The December 23rd attack was no ordinary bombardment. It was an attempt at a show of force by a leader cornered at the peace talks table. The Russian Air Force attempted a coordinated saturation attack with Tu-95MS strategic bomber aircraft taking off from the Caspian Sea and Arctic regions. The goal was simple: to engage Ukraine's air defense systems with a record number of 635 Shahed/Garan drones and deliver missiles to their targets amid the chaos. The scale of the attack was so large that sirens blared for hours across Ukraine. Energy infrastructure was targeted in Kiev and the west of the country. At least 3 civilians were killed, and widespread power outages occurred. Kiev and southern Ukraine faced a major disaster, with electricity systems collapsing, leaving the population in the dark and without heating for a period of time. Russia wanted to force the Ukrainian people to surrender by freezing them in the coldest days of winter. However, this attack became the expected signal flare for the Ukrainian general staff. While the Russian army had focused all its attention and air defense capabilities on the Ukrainian border and front line, Russia's strategic depths were left defenseless, virtually exposed. Ukraine's counterattack was based on pinpoint strikes and the destruction of high-value targets in response to Russia's volumetric attack. In the midst of this chaos, Ukrainian intelligence, or GUR, played its asymmetric card. While Russian air defense radars were locked onto targets in Ukrainian skies, Ukraine's long-range kamikaze drones silently slipped into Russia. The target was the city of Budyonovsk in the Stavropol region, hundreds of kilometers behind the front lines. This target was not a randomly selected military base. The target was the Stavrolen petrochemical plant. This is one of the places where Russia's industrial heart beats. This massive complex, owned by Lukoil, is Russia's second-largest producer of polymers and high-density polyethylene. We must make this clear to the viewer. This factory is the raw material kitchen of the Russian army. The composite bodies of unmanned aerial vehicles used in the war, the internal components of military vehicles, the insulation materials for ammunition, and even the plastic components of the equipment used by soldiers are produced here, in these giant vats. Ukrainian drones struck the ethylene cracking units and gas separation workshops, the factory's most critical points, with direct hits. Images posted on social media and verified by OSINT analysts show the factory transformed into a massive fireball that lit up the night sky. This strike is not a momentary halt in Russian military industry production, but a months-long raw material crisis. Another wide-angle image shared by Tender proves that the fire engulfed the entire facility, making intervention impossible. The shutdown of Stavropol could cause a drop of up to 20% in Russia's UAV production capacity. That night, Ukraine destroyed not only Russia's current production, but also its future ammunition production capacity. While Stavropol was burning, Ukraine's wave of attacks reached further south that same night, to the strategic junction at the entrance to the Kerch Strait in the Krasnodar region. The target was the Taman-Neftogaz terminal, one of the largest gateways for Russia's energy exports in the Black Sea. This is one of the main arteries through which Russia sells LPG, crude oil, and fuel products to the world, financing the war. Ukrainian drones targeted fuel storage tanks, filling stations, and pipelines at the port. Although the Russian Defense Ministry issued its standard "fire broke out from the wreckage" statement, the facts were refuted by reports from the field. Ukrainian officials confirmed that the drone attack directly damaged a pipeline and port infrastructure. More importantly, the Russian side could not deny this fire. Russian officials were forced to officially acknowledge that a fire broke out at the oil terminal in the Krasnodar region due to a Ukrainian attack. Maritime reports from the region indicate that the attack damaged not only onshore facilities, but also ships in the port. According to Safety 4C's report, this attack on Ukraine's coastline has crippled Russia's Black Sea logistics. The technical implication of this attack is that Ukraine has taken away Russia's energy blackmail card. While Russia tried to cut off Ukraine's electricity, Ukraine physically shut off Russia's money tap. The shutdown of the Taman terminal will create a major bottleneck in Russia's oil shipments to Asian and global South markets. This is an economic strangulation move. So why did Ukraine choose this particular moment and these specific targets? Russia opened the gates of this hell with its own hands, with a fatal mistake it made 11 days ago. The roots of this story lie in an international crisis that unfolded on December 12th at the Chornomorsk port in Odessa. Seeing that it had lost control of the Black Sea and wanting to render Ukraine's grain corridor inoperable, Russia resorted to rogue state tactics. Russian missiles targeted the Cenk T ship, owned by the Turkish company Cenk Ro-Ro, which was anchored in the port of Odessa for entirely civilian and commercial purposes. The ship was carrying humanitarian aid and commercial cargo. The missile strike set the ship's deck on fire, damaging the bridge and lifeboats. The crew was evacuated in a panic. It was reported that a total of 3 Turkish ships were damaged in this attack. This was a direct attack by Russia not only on Ukraine, but also on the inviolability of NATO member Turkey and international trade. President Zelensky personally confirmed the attack and condemned Russia's terrorism against civilian infrastructure and international trade. For the Kiev administration, this attack was the last straw. The Ukrainian General Staff introduced a new doctrine in the maritime trade war: symmetric retaliation. The logic was this: if Russia tries to strangle us by striking the ports of Odessa and Chornomorsk and incoming civilian merchant ships, we will strangle them by striking Russia's Black Sea trade ports, such as Taman and Novorossiysk, and its oil infrastructure. The event that cemented this resolve took place on December 20th, just before the December 23rd attack. Russia carried out a barbaric missile attack on the port of Odessa, killing 8 civilians and severely damaging the port infrastructure. As the death toll in Odessa rose, Ukraine's plan for revenge became clearer. According to The Guardian's report, these attacks were part of Russia's strategy to prevent Ukraine from exporting goods by sea. The December 23rd attack on the Taman port and pipeline was a direct response to the Cenk T and Odessa attack incidents. Instead of issuing a diplomatic condemnation, Ukraine spoke in the only language Russia understands: the language of force and destruction. Those burning oil tanks in Krasnodar are a coded message to Moscow. If our ships are not safe in the Black Sea, your tankers and terminals are not safe either. The diplomatic and economic cost of these tit-for-tat strikes is much heavier for Russia. The attack on Taman port has pushed insurance premiums for Russian oil transportation in the Black Sea to astronomical levels. International shipping companies will not want to dock at Russian ports declared war zones. By striking a Turkish ship on December 12th, Russia has put its own billion-dollar energy exports at risk and turned the Black Sea into a lake of death for itself as well. The price of this strategic blindness is being paid with the largest economic gateway in southern Russia going up in flames. Zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, we see that Russia's safe motherland myth has completely collapsed. Putin's biggest promise to his people was the lie that the war will stay at the borders, life in Moscow will continue as normal. The last week of December shattered that lie. On December 22nd, just one day before the major attacks, a shocking incident occurred in Moscow, the heart of Russia. A Russian general was killed when a bomb planted in his car exploded in front of his home in the capital. The Russian Investigative Committee immediately began investigating the Ukraine connection. The strategic significance of this assassination is much greater than the destruction of a brigade on the front line. It shows that the Russian intelligence service, the FSB, cannot even protect its own high-ranking military officers in the heart of the capital. A mood of fear and panic has taken hold among Moscow's elite, oligarchs and bureaucrats. Am I next? The war is no longer a news story on television. It is a reality on the streets of Moscow. However, the collapse is not limited to the capital. Deep within Russia, thousands of kilometers from the front line in the Perm region, military cargo trains and fuel tankers are burning fiercely at railway stations. These fires show how far the arm of Ukraine or resistance groups within Russia can reach. Russian logistics were walking on a knife's edge, and now that knife has broken. The sabotage of the railway lines has disrupted the flow of ammunition and fuel to the front. This situation has led to a Mad Max scenario in civilian life. There is no fuel at gas stations, especially in Crimea and southern Russia. In Yalta, people are stealing gasoline from parked cars at night. Gas stations are displaying "no fuel" signs, and kilometer-long queues are forming. According to Reuters reports, this shortage in a petroleum giant like Russia is fundamentally shaking the public's confidence in the regime. When all these events, the Stavropol fire, the damage to the Taman terminal, the Moscow assassination, the Perm sabotage, are combined, the picture that emerges is this. The Russian Federation has fallen into a geographically indefensible position. The Russian air defense system, consisting of S-300, S-400, and Pantsir, does not have the density to protect this massive front line exceeding 1,000 kilometers. The systems deployed to protect Moscow left industrial areas unprotected. If they tried to protect industry, the front line would collapse. This is a classic blanket too short problem. If you cover your head, your feet are exposed. In the shadow of peace talks, Russia wanted to sit at the table as a strong player. According to Bloomberg's analysis, these attacks occurred precisely during a period when peace negotiations were on the agenda. However, the events of the night of December 23rd showed the whole world that Russia is a paper tiger, unable to protect even its own industry and capital. Ukraine checkmated Russia on its own turf, in its own game. As a result, December 23rd is not the day Russia tried to plunge Kiev into darkness, but the day it set its own future ablaze. Putin's missiles took lives and destroyed homes in Ukraine. Yes, the pain is great, and the price is heavy. However, when we look at the strategic balance, Ukraine's counterattack is much more deadly, lasting, and systemic. The Turkish ship hit in Odessa was avenged by the pipeline destroyed in Taman port. The attempt to cut off Kiev's electricity was answered by shutting down the heart of the Russian military industry in Stavropol. Generals killed on the streets of Moscow, trains burning in Perm, and the helpless Russian people waiting in line for gasoline. All scream one truth. Putin's special military operation has now turned into Russia's existential crisis. Russia tried to turn Ukraine into a shooting range, but in the end, its own territory became the favorite target of Ukrainian drones. There is no longer a safe haven behind the Kremlin walls, because those walls are being heated by a fire burning from within. This is not just the collapse of a front line, this is the collapse of an imperial illusion. So, what do you think about this? Please share your thoughts in the comments. To stay updated on new videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Thank you for choosing us.